Joining us now, Congressman, 1st District Republican, on his way to another victory, Rob Wittman. Congressman, great to have you.
John, great to be with you this morning. Thanks again for the opportunity.
Congressman, Friday night in Newport News, the president and the vice president showing Congressman Wittman the love, man. You see that? It was like, wow, they love you, man. Like, Pence was like, there's my man, Rob Wittman right there, man. I've been working with him for years. He's our man. He's the sea guy. He's building our ships. And then the president gets up and he calls you out by name. That's pretty good, Rob Wittman.
Well, I tell you, the vice president and I go back a ways. I got to serve with him in the House, and just a great guy. President, the same, and all the work that he's doing, and doing things like taking on China. And John, being there in Newport News, the one thing that ought to be just central in people's mind is what President Trump has done to rebuild our military. And you talk about building ships. That's incredibly important. And we have the best shipbuilders in the world right here in Newport News. But the president took us from a time where we were on the consequential side of the sequester and those reductions to our military, and saying, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to go ahead and rebuild the military. In fact, OMB Director Russ Vought, asked me to come into his office about a week ago and said, Rob, I need to know from you, what do we need to do to make sure we're doing everything we can to continue the rebuilding of our Navy, because we know how incredibly important that is, especially in light of the recent report showing that China not only has more ships than we have, but their ships are much more advanced. Now, listen, we still have great ships, but the Chinese are catching up. So the question we have is, how do we make sure that we stay ahead? So, all of those efforts, I think, are incredibly important. So it's great to have the vice president there. I was very honored to have the vice president's acknowledgement as well as the president's acknowledgement there. It was a great event, lots of folks there, lots of excitement. So a great time. Of course, we had, as you saw, our other candidates there too. And Scott Taylor there. Scott came up and of course, gave a great speech, and so did Nick Freitas. So great evening there in Newport News.
Well, you were certainly showed an inordinate amount of love by both the president and the vice president, so you should feel very, very good about that, Rob Wittman. Tell us about the Rob Wittman campaign.
Well, John, we're very, very busy out there each and every day, contacting voters, making sure we're getting information out to them. It's, as you know, it's a steady path to victory on November the 3rd. But it really is all about voter turnout, is knocking on doors, getting information to people, letting them know their options to be able to vote early. Some people have questions about being able to go in person early, and you can do that in Virginia now without having to, fill out a form with the reason as you're going to vote early. You walk right in, show your ID, they check you off on the voter rolls, they give you your ballot, you cast your vote, go through the OpScan machine, and you're done.
Right.
Also by mail. Listen, what we tell folks is make sure that they are requesting a ballot themselves. They can do that online, or they can, send a request in by mail. But to make sure that they immediately cast that ballot, and if I think the mail service can easily handle the ballots coming in. But if you have a question about that and afraid it might get lost, what we tell folks to do is to take it right to the registrar's office. You can hand it off to them. If you have a question about the mail, is drop it in the mail, call the registrar's office 1 week later, ask them if they have received it, and confirmation that they have received it. But make sure that you request your ballot early. Per chance it does get lost, you can then ask for that ballot to be canceled, and then you can cast another ballot. But we tell people, don't cast another ballot without formally requesting one that you've already sent in that may not have arrived. Make sure you ask that one to be canceled. But I think that's the key, getting folks out to vote, making sure that they know all the proper ways to be able to cast their vote.
John Fredericks Radio Network. We're with Republican Congressman Rob Wittman from the 1st District of Virginia, running for re-election. That'll be decided November 3rd. He's a big favorite there to win again. Rob, I got a text here from Eugene in Chesterfield. Very interesting. He says, "This is how much of a nothing burger the Trump Melania COVID is. I had completely forgotten that Ralph Northam and Pam Northam tested positive until you mentioned it. So it's like they tested positive, they're fine, nothing happened. Nobody wrote anything about it, and in 2 weeks that was over. Now they're back doing what they do every day. So the president testing positive today with Melania. Obviously, we wish everybody the best that has this. But I had Steve Bannon on earlier, and he and I were in lockstep on this. I just think you go forward, show resolve, get through it. It's another day at the office. No need to panic. And, people are going to test positive. But our thing from the beginning is testing positive cases don't mean anything. It's like how many people in the hospital, how many people are dying, and the numbers continue to go down, Rob.
Well, John, it just goes to show that, yes, you have to take all the different precautions. And even if you do, you see, like the governor, like the president, like other elected officials, people are going to get the disease. I think what people ought to take away from this is that the virus through the time has provided a very great opportunity for doctors and the medical community to learn how to effectively treat the virus. So the therapeutics have advanced greatly. So you see with that, you see the symptoms of the disease with the treatments that people receive are much less. You see, too, where we have made significant advancements there, and you look at that as reflected not necessarily in the cases of disease, but in the number of people that have either severe symptoms or pass away from the disease. I think that speaks to the advancements that we've made. And just as you said, people get the disease, the protocols are pretty straightforward. You continue to be tested, you quarantine yourself, and then once you have 2 consecutive tests over 24 hours and come up negative, then you're out of quarantine and you're back to the routines that you had before. That's across the board for everyone. The president will be doing the same thing. As you said, you adjust. When you're in quarantine, now you do things virtually, and you can do that. And I think the president can do that. I know we've seen that with other folks in official positions that have tested positive. They continue to do the things that they would have done otherwise. They just do them differently. They do it virtually. They do it in other ways where they don't contact people. So, you make adjustments. You make sure that, and I know the White House doctors will monitor this very, very carefully and make sure that he receives the proper therapeutics. And I think you just continue on. You just make a few changes as to how you do things. You won't be able to do the things live, but I think you can continue to contact people and do the work of the White House as you would otherwise.
Exactly. That's exactly it. That's exactly what our position is. It's just another day at the office. People are going to test positive. Doesn't mean anything. You got to go forward and keep living your life. Stay within the various protocols, but go forward. Okay. Your speaker yesterday passing a $2.2 trillion COVID-19 relief bill. The talks with Steve Mnuchin and the White House stalled. She got no Republican votes for this. This was strictly on partisan lines. The president's not going to sign it, and it's dead on arrival in the Senate. So it's the last thing she does is a showboat vote that will amount to nothing. Don't these people care about actually getting a new PPP out or getting a new stimulus out or helping people? Or for them, is it all about power and show? Because that's what it seems to me. She has zero chance of getting this passed through the Senate. And even if it did, the president already says he's going to veto it. So why pass something on your final day that is for show? What is the purpose of that?
Well, John, it is solely a partisan messaging bill. In fact, I would argue that the bill itself and the vote on the bill was a bipartisan vote against the bill. There were 17 Democrats that voted no. So if you talk about bipartisanship, there was bipartisan opposition to the bill because it was nothing more than a messaging bill. And think about some of the things that were in there. It actually defunds the police. It removes $600 million of emergency coronavirus assistance that was in the original bill that they put forward, which was also another partisan messaging bill. Those dollars would go to state and local law enforcement. They actually took those out. It actually is a windfall for millionaires and billionaires. It gives them a massive tax break by repealing the state and local tax limitations, better known as the SALT tax. And you know, in states where they have extraordinarily high local taxes and state taxes, and states where you have low taxes, those tax provisions actually create an imbalance. So you have people in low tax states actually, through this tax credit, subsidize people in high tax states. It also imposes some new election requirements on state and local officials. So what it does is this would federalize the election system. I think everybody looks at the election system and feels comfortable when they walk into the polls and they see people from their communities that are managing the election system. They know that their states are in charge of that. They know that there are people in their communities that are watching over the system, that are being held accountable, they're making the system working properly, that it's not federalized, which I think creates an even greater risk to the elections because you have a single point of failure rather than, you know, all these different counties that have their electoral boards, the state electoral board. So all of those things problematic with it. And that's the reason why 17 Democrats voted against it. It's just not anything substantive. It's not anything that's going to have a chance of getting signed into law. And remember, legislating, John, is not just about getting a bill passed through the House. Legislating is about getting something signed into law. And there are businesses out there that are hurting. I talk to them every day. There are families out there that are still challenged with trying to get back to their jobs, trying to get their businesses back to where they need to be. And this is a complete failure in doing the things necessary to help this economy continue to get back on its feet. And you have to wonder about the efforts of the speaker in whether she's really serious or not about helping this economy get back to where it needs to be. And listen, in spite of these efforts that don't result in things getting done, we still see the economy plugging along. We still see people doing the things necessary to get going. Just think about where we could be if we had this next step that could really, really help people and get money to where it needs to be. You know, not just spend money in a bunch of different areas unrelated to COVID-19, which is what this bill would do, but really get money to the places where we know it could jumpstart to an even greater extent this economy.
Well, look, despite it all, it's still moving forward. But Congressman Wittman with us yesterday, this is what drives people nuts, okay? Yesterday, 35 House Republicans called for Pelosi and Hoyer, to Democrat leaders, right, to bring up a bill, a clean bill. Remember all the Democrats would always scream for a clean bill, right? Remember that? They'd be, we need a clean bill. We need a clean CR. It's got to be clean, right? So 35 of you guys say, we want a clean PPP bill because it ran out and businesses need the money to keep hiring their people and keeping their employees there as the economy covers. So 35 Republicans implore the Democrats to vote on a clean PPP bill. Now, they agree with the PPP. There's no opposition to that. There's no Democrat out there saying, no, we can't do PPP. Everybody's saying, well, that reluctantly, even the squad is saying, yeah, well, it kind of worked. Okay, so nobody's arguing with that. So the Republicans say, look, while we're fighting over defunding the police and the post office funding and all this other stuff, let's just get PPP done now because businesses need the money now in order to keep their employees hired, which is good for everything. And we've already got a model for it. We're going to fix it so the Los Angeles Lakers, a $5 billion franchise, is not getting $250 million, that it's not raped by the people on Wall Street, because of their insiders. They took all the money the first round. We're going to stop all that, and we're going to have a clean PPP, and they reject it. They reject it. They won't even meet with you guys on it. Why?
I don't know why, John. It just doesn't make sense. As you said, we need to get this done. In fact, there were 25 Republicans, 25 Democrats that said, listen, here's something that we can all agree upon about a $1.5 trillion coronavirus bill that focuses on, just as you said, PPP, focuses on helping those families and individuals that are still struggling, that are still challenged to get back into the workforce for a variety of different reasons. In fact, what we did as Republicans last Friday is we actually put forward what's called a discharge petition, which says we're seeing that Speaker Pelosi is not serious about getting something done. So members of the House can actually force a bill to the floor. If we get 218 signatures to force a bill to the floor, then the Speaker has no choice. Right now, she is saying, no, I am not going to put anything forward except the political messaging bills that she's put forward. John, if she put forward a bill that continued to fund PPP, if she put forward a bill that was just focused on helping families and helping businesses, it would pass unanimously, I think, or doggone close to unanimously, through the House. And it would go through the Senate, I think, without an issue, and it would be signed into law by the president. So when you see that there's a path where you can get something done for the American people, you can help those businesses that are hurting. You can help those American families that are hurting. And you refuse to do that. You refuse to do that over political expediency through partisanship, then you really have to ask yourself, what is behind Speaker Pelosi's efforts, and why does she want to not help people today that are suffering?
Right.
And I don't know. I can't answer that question. It's mindless to me that she won't bring the bill forward. We're doing everything we can to force a bill to be brought forward. There are easy ways for us to do this in an overwhelmingly bipartisan way to help the American people.
Can you get 218 votes?
Listen, I think we can, John. I think we'll get every Republican. And remember, there were 25 Democrats that signed on and said, let's bring this other bill to the floor, a $1.5 trillion relief package. That's what essentially this discharge petition says. So
how many Republicans are there in the House?
Gosh, John, I think off the top of my head in the 190s, and I think what we need are 19 Democrats to sign the discharge petition.
So you need 19 or 20 Dems, because some Republicans not going to be there. So you need 19 or 20 Dems. 25 voted to get it to go forward with it. You need 20 of those. Let's see who steps up. I want to force that. I want to know where's Spanberger on this. I want to know where's Lori on this. Remember, they ran around the districts last time, especially Spanberger, ran around the district. I'm going to be different. I'm a moderate. I'm going to vote with the president. I'm going to do what's right. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. She's done nothing of this sort. I like Abigail, Rob. I really do. I don't like criticizing people on the air. I like Abigail a lot. I try to give her the benefit of the doubt. But where's she on this? I would like her to step up and say, hey, we need to help our businesses in the 7th. We need to help our businesses in the 2nd. We need to help our business in Virginia. I'm going to step up and discharge this petition for PPP. But she's not going to do that because she can't, because they'll cut off her money. I mean, it's a sick system the Democrats have up there. It's sick. I just want to call them out. Where you need 20 Democrats basically to help businesses get the money on PPP on a bill that everybody agrees with. And we can't get it done because of politics. Unbelievable, Rob. Unbelievable. I don't know how you stand it there.
Well, John, we just need to get the job done.
Hey, Abigail, why don't you be one of the 19? Why don't you do that for us? Why don't you help us out? Elaine, why don't you shock the world and not vote with AOC once? John Fredericks Radio Network. Yeah, I'm a little frustrated. Rob Wittman, thank you for being with us, Rob.